Innsbruck in Austria, the venue for the second race weekend of the BMW IBSF two-man Bobsleigh World Cup. Hello everybody and welcome to the snowy Tyrol Mountains just outside of the city of Innsbruck. We're at the sliding centre at Eagles, ready for our second two-man bobsleigh competition of the weekend. Martin Haven and John Morgan getting ready to watch the action. And John, if last week was anything to go by, it could be a bit of a crazy race.
Yeah, the track, you know, we talk about how easy it is to get down the track, but, you know, it's tough to get down fast. We've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly in all forms so far in these 2 weeks. And curve one, we've seen a little mistakes here. And getting around curve two, this is where they come in with the fastest speed to that point. It's the good starts, but it's the best velocity out of that curve is what everybody wants. We saw mistakes here this morning in women's monobob with some mistakes up top here. You don't want to touch a wall up here. This is where you're really going slow and you need all of the energy going forward that you can. Exit of the big Kreisel, slingshot to curve 8. This sets you up for 9, what I call the most pivotal part of the track. This long straightaway to 10, big high, and you dive out of this fastest part of the track, 3-quarter combination. Sleds get airborne right here into the finish, a little bit uphill. Then the brakeman has to really challenge and stop the sled. But it's a short track, Martin, one of the shortest on the circuit. And boy, good racing so far.
There has been very good racing so far. Francesco Friedrich was the winner last Saturday from teammate Hansi Lochner. Brad Hall claimed a bronze medal for Team GB ahead of the Canadian Justin Cripps, with Cody Basket a great 5th place start to his season ahead of Rostislav Gajtukovic, the top Russian driver. And Brad Hall then went on to take a silver medal behind winner Francesco Friedrich in the 4-man race on Sunday last week. So Team GB there in a very good form. Lamindine in the 2-man, not doing quite so well, 23rd last week. He will be doing better, hopefully, in the 4-man again this weekend. Well, it's a little bit foggy. The snow has stopped, though. And there is Francesco Friedrich. Behind him, Simon Friedli. Francesco Friedrich still the man everybody is looking to beat. Justin Cripps. After a fairly truncated season for the Canadians last year because of the COVID travel restrictions, they only got a few weeks in Europe. They are back for the full season. Everybody is here for the full 8-week World Cup tour. Well, we start with our 28 sleds, beg your pardon, all going for a spot in the top 20. And Sun Kai-chi of China will be first off. Hansi Lochner, silver medalist last week. He is 4th off the top. 9th off is Francesco Friedrich, last week's winner. Brad Hall, start draw number 12. We'll wait and see how the track develops over the course of this first run. Second race of the BMW IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup. First of 28 sleds in the first heat here. Sun Kai-chi of China, they're getting away quickly in case there's some more snow coming in. Martin Haven and John Morgan watching the action with you.
Kazi's son is 24 years old. Martin, he's a decathlete. He did provide us some good bio information. So another decathlete. By the time we're done, I bet you we're going to find out that about 8 of these drivers in the field are decathletes, including that guy named Friedrich.
Well, his previous World Cup races up until last week had only been in North America. This is only his 4th World Cup start. It's a 3rd two-man World Cup for Wu Qingzi, his 23-year-old brakeman. Chinese spent the season last year in Beijing on their home track, the track for the Olympic Games. They didn't get to travel at all. So really struggling to learn this Innsbruck track in 2 weeks. And Sun Kai-chi, 25th last week. We'll have to wait and see what that does for him, whether he's got enough to get into the top 20.
He's the rabbit, first guy down. What we saw last week, the first guy down, which was Cody Basket, had a big advantage. He ended up 2nd in the first heat last week. The line's pretty good. Not much way we can fault any of this, Martin.
Didn't panic there, did he?
No,
just allowed the sled. Yeah. All right, so 52.41 is the benchmark. Let's see what Markus Treichel of Austria can produce. 35th World Cup race. He's done 10 two-man World Cups here, as well as the World Championships. 28 years old. Markus Lucas Brakeman, 31. His 12th two-man World Cup. His last two-man race, though, was back in January in Koenigsegg in the run-in to the World Championships.
Yeah, he didn't qualify last week, Martin, which I'm sure was very disappointing. On his home track, his parents do a lot of work on the track, involved with Austrian bob and skeleton luge. 5:16, that's 300ths better start than he had last week, which that's an improvement. And that's where he needs to improve, is that first 50 meters.
Well, Markus Lucas Brakeman wasn't on the sled last week. Best result here, 11th place. World Cup best in a two-man sled anywhere is 8th place. But if he can make the cut, that would definitely be the first step.
Well, I would safe to say that he knows the track well. Been around now, he had 1 Olympics under his belt. This is his second quad. Quad is the 4-year period in between the games. 1700s, well, you would expect him to, early ice he has here to work with, so he should be doing it. And he is, 52.17. Now let's check into last week.
73 seconds off the track record, but we probably won't get close to that. Markus Cook coming back from injury at the end of last season, or came back at the end of last season from injury, so getting fitter for this Olympic year.
He went 52.20 last time out, and he was the 21st starter. I think he's going to make the cut just because he's the #2 guy going down. Look at the size of the brakeman. You can see when they got those big meat hooks that they got to come up and get down in that aerodynamic position. And Markus, a big man himself, pretty good aerodynamic profile, eyes barely above the cowling. Little tap there, that wasn't perfect. Markus, I think you're going to make the cut this time.
Well, what about Lamindine? He was 1 spot behind Markus Treichel, the 40-year-old Grenadier Guardsman. 9 two-man World Cup races here. Big Toby Alubi behind him for the first time in a couple of years. Toby's last two-man race, February 2019. The teacher from London unretiring for this Olympic season.
Toby could be the biggest guy in the field. What do you think, Martin?
He's not short, that's for sure.
Big dude, big unit. Lamindine, again, he was behind Markus Treichel, but again, last week though, he went second, Martin, and still didn't make the cut.
Yep.
So let's see what he can do this time. 2,200 back, so this pace will be behind both sleds.
Yeah, best two-man result here is 17th for Lamindine. Again, making the cut is really where he's aiming for. Try and get the points to qualify. Toby Alubi on the brakes.
Toby came up too
way too soon.
He put the brakes on.
And that is disqualification.
Yeah,
can't believe it.
Well, he's not going to make the cut anyways, but now, you know, the grooves of the track. Biggest misconception of the sport is the brake. When does he use the brakes? He can't use them until after the finish line or DQ.
You can hear himself beating himself up.
It'll be interesting to see if how quickly the officials recognize this. Here's where he's putting the brakes on, right there.
Yeah, and you can see the sled skidding sideways. And now he's trying to figure out why there are more corners than he was expecting. And then he sees the finish line. His driver turns around. You can see the anguish in his face even as they cross the line.
Peter. In all the years.
It happens. It happens.
In all the years. I don't know if I've ever seen.
Well, in the old days, they used to brake. Goma used to tell us about how hard you'd brake coming down to Horseshoe in the old days on the snowy tracks, in the old sleds, in the Feyerabend kit. Yeah.
That rule of braking's been around for about 75 years. So,
yeah,
you know, that might have been in training, you know, your first time down. I can remember using the brakes your first time down the track with a new driver. You know, you'd be on the back using the brakes.
And that natural track, Cherovina, that got him breaking as well. Next up then, Hansi Lochner, silver medalist last week, 43rd two-man World Cup start for him. Before January's race of this year, last season, he had 5 consecutive podiums, slipped out of a top spot and was back in second place. He was the only man to beat Francesco Friedrich last year. He took gold in December here on this track. Fifth consecutive start in Innsbruck for Christian Rasp, the brakeman, so it clearly suits his style well.
Christian's a 100, 200-meter sprinter. Didn't use him last week. He used Florian Bauer last week when he went on to get that silver medal.
Well, this is Christian's 5th consecutive start in Innsbruck. 1600s up. He needs to be a lot further ahead than Marcus Treichel at the end of the run if he's going to challenge for the medals.
Perfect exit. Wonderful energy. Best speed, 3,500s up. This is pretty much what you would expect from the Johannes Lochner from the Birches Garden area. 51.72. Martin, he was only 300 slower there than he was in his first heat last week.
Yeah. And a little snowier. Last week it was clear and dry. And I think the track was just offering a little bit more perhaps than it is today.
How's the energy here? Do you see any spray? You know, he's barely above the cowling in that Darth Vader shield. He's, that's pretty impressive.
Well, Christian Rasp in his last 4 races here has been 6th, 3rd, 3rd and 2nd with Hansi. So he wasn't on the winning sled last year. Next up, Mikhail Vogt of Switzerland, 23-year-old, 25-year-old brakeman Sandro Michel behind him. 18th two-man World Cup start for Sandro, 27th for his driver. But together, they have shared all of Vogt's medals. A silver and 3 bronzes in World Cup races.
This was like the Swiss home track, although, you know, in the early part of the season, this is where they're training. Here in La Plagne, Swiss have always done well on this track in the day.
And everybody at home is going, yeah, no, but hey, St. Moritz. Well, John, the track crew arrived in St. Moritz this week to start construction. That's why the Swiss have to go other places early in the year. The track won't be open until late December.
Christmas, if they're lucky.
Yeah.
Maybe before. They got to get the passenger ride. They got to get the passenger rides ready.
Oh, yeah.
These are good lines.
7th place last week for Mikhail Vogt. Little late flop out of 10. Good speed down the bottom, really critical.
Strong second place here.
Wow.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, but 4,300s back. Yeah, that's a distance back.
Yeah, he was only 1,400s back last week in his first heat.
Yeah. I'm saying that is not a top 7 run right now.
No, I agree with you.
He'll be lucky if that's a top 10 run, 4,300s back. Well, part of this season, John, is qualifying for the games, getting the points, being well up in the rankings, especially ahead of your teammates. But part of it is making sure you know how to get the very best out of your sled. So sometimes you just gamble on something, you try something different. Sometimes it works, sometimes not so much. But you always learn. Hansi Lochner leads, 5 sleds down. Mihai Tentea of Romania is the 6th of our 28 starters. Race 2 of the BMW IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup. We're in Innsbruck, Austria, with his brakeman Ciprian Doroci behind him. 9th two-man start for Ciprian, 17th for Mihai Tentea.
In down. Not bad, 18. Not bad. You know, 5:20 start. He had a 17 last week. He's only 700s back right there from Lochner. He was at a deficient start of 600s.
Yep.
Only 11. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Should have been farther back than that. Yeah.
Quicker than Mikhail Vogt.
Yeah. This young Romanian.
Yeah, nice looking run.
Press. Yeah. Third best speed. I bet you if you give him Hansi Lochner's sled, he might be challenging.
Well, plus another 30 World Cups worth of experience.
That's good. 52.12. He started 14th last week, a little earlier. 51.92 last week. He knows that's a good run.
300s ahead of Mikhail Vogt of Switzerland. They were 7th and 10th, respectively, last week. That could well be a top 10 run for Mihai Tentea.
He's not the tallest guy. In fact, he's probably the shortest guy in the competition. And look at the big, cohesive move by the brakeman. Now watch you take those shoulders, make them disappear. We always check. Can you see anybody back there? No. Perfectly planted in the back is the brakeman. For the small guy, Martin, he's up. I don't like the way he's up. His head should be down.
He is up high,
more.
isn't he?
He's up high for a small guy.
There's not much of him for the brakeman to hide behind either, is there? So 6 sleds down, we sweep the track again, so there will be a little pause before the USA's Cody Basket starts what will be his 40th career two-man start in World Cup alone. 6 World Cup races here out of those 40, but January last year, the end of last season, January 21, that was his first race here in 2 full seasons. The last one before that was January 2019. Behind him, brakeman Carlo Valdez, 31 years old. Carlo with 23 two-man World Cup starts under his belt now. Well, it will be.
He's been around for a while, that's for sure.
He has, but never in a 4-man.
Really?
Now there can't be many brakemen unless I misread the website.
You've missed it there. He's been on many brakeman slots.
I wrote that down, and even as I did, I was questioning it. I'm looking again now.
You go to the U.S. site, you'll see all his results. I was just looking at them, so unless I missed something too, Martin. Carlo and Cody had pretty good starts last week. He was second place into the first heat, but he was the first guy down. What he does here, 5:17. It's not bad. 300's back. You know, keep talking about the USA with improved start times this year, Martin. That brand new start facility that they built in Lake Placid, New York. You know, these guys had a lot of ice time on that in August, September, and October before they took off on tour. 1100's back, 7th best speed. That's not good.
Yeah, 36 four-man starts for Carlo Valdez. Clearly, I was looking at something completely different. 3rd place.
Fake news. 2800's
top
back.
5 for Cody Basket last week. It was a great start to the season.
Second,
and
snuck in there.
Yeah, there you go.
On the bottom part of the track, he found a little bit of time. But you know, it's his 40th start, Martin. 40.
Yeah.
40. That's called, you've got a lot of experience.
But then he had a couple of seasons where he wasn't racing World Cup. So, you know, that kind of fades away a little bit when when you're just in North America. That memory of the European track starts to fade.
Also had a couple seasons of some injuries.
Yeah.
Look at the speed difference, 1.5 kilometers to Johannes Lochner. That's why I'm impressed with how good he did on the bottom part of the track. Boy, but he got blown away by Lochner.
Only 300s at the start, but the speed of the FES sleds is very impressive. Next up, Justin Cripps and Cam Stones, 34-year-old driver, 29-year-old brakeman. For Cripps, this is his 71st World Cup two-man start. 7 of those were as a brakeman, but he's had 8 World Cup races here as a driver.
Yeah. Good start there. Best start of the day. Just off the podium last week by 1/100th of a second. I'm sure he had a little time to chew that up all week.
Yeah.
So him and Cam Stones, the rugby player in the back, rugby sevens guy. 900's in the bank. This is looking good for the Olympic gold medalist from 2018. Back to 7 though. He was the the speed says here. No ranking on the speed yet. Second best speed. Gonna be, look like a solid second place.
He and Jesse Lumsden took a silver medal here back in 2017. And that was the last time that Justin Cripps was on an Innsbruck podium. But that is a good first heat. And as you say, he was very, very close last week.
Better starts this week than last. Lochner beat him by 300ths last week in the first heat. He beat Lochner by 300ths this week. Of course, Lochner's got a different brakeman. But look at the speed difference. A kilometer. You wonder why Lochner caught him on the bottom? There's the proof. It's all about the speed.
Well, from one Olympic champion to another. Hey, what? Hang on a minute. Yes, because back in Pyeongchang, we had a dead heat for the Olympic two-man gold medal between Justin Cripps and this man, Francesco Friedrich. With Torsten Margis back on the sled, together they have six victories on this track.
See what his backup brakeman can do. 5:08. Torsten was the #1 brakeman for that 2014 to 18 quad, and boy, has he been glued to Friedrich. Look what he just produces, the best start. Usually the guy with the best start is the guy that wins at the bottom. And that's what this guy is.
I miscounted. Torsten Margis has been part of 7 of Friedrich's wins on this track. Last week with Alexander Schuller, he made it win number 11 on this track alone, in two-man alone. 1600s up, he is pulling away from Hansi Lochner. Same FPS sled.
Coming back. 15, he came back in the bottom. He came, you know, he had it up to about 2200s, then at the second best speed in the bottom part of the track. I'm saying the reason for that is Lochner went 4th, he went 9th. I think the speed falls away quickly on the track.
That.
So,
especially on a damp day like today.
Him and Lochner will probably go back-to-back in the second run. Remember, last week he had a 3400ths lead at the end of the first run. That was insane. That's no man's land. You never lead by 3400ths on a 1200-meter track. Maybe in St. Moritz, where it's, you know, 1:07 to get down.
He's rewriting the rules, this man.
Yeah. So he just went 51:57, Martin. The time at the 1976 Olympics, the average time was a 56:10. So the track's 5 seconds faster than it was.
And don't forget, in those days,
Olympics.
they came round the final corner before the finish line. So the track is shorter in these days as well.
Yeah, so it's hard to make it exact.
Well, next up is Rostislav Gajtukovic of Russia with Mikhail Mortisov, 6th place finish last week. This is only his 12th World Cup. John, he just exploded onto the scene last season. His first ever World Cup medal was here in January. He took a bronze, and that remains his only World Cup medal so far. Mortisov, the brakeman, 16th two-man World Cup start. So he sat in more World Cup two-man sleds than Rostislav Gajtukovic has so far. But Gajtukovic, no question now, absolutely Russia's #1 driver in two-man and four-man.
I say he was a little disappointed last week, Martin, but he started 15th. This week he's starting 10th.
And he is right with Cripps and Friedrich on the same kind of ice, so 5:07, look at that.
Hello. 5:10.
Remember the days when the Russians used to have the quickest starts of all? Those days are coming back.
Yeah, for this young athlete here, he's already lost his advantage. Already lost it. Going to be red numbers at the next clock.
And a mistake there as well, out of 6.
6th best speed. Must have done something up on that 2 or 3. Oh, he's losing it back quickly.
Friedrich always says first 2 or 3 corners are where you win the race or lose it.
Going real high there too. A little tap out of 9. Now he's really falling back. 30-hundreds,
Right.
3200s back. He's going to be
He'll be
probably
behind
fourth.
Cripps, but ahead of Cody
35.
Basket.
Yeah, he's well ahead of Cody Basket.
Well, 6th place last week, 5th after the first heat. 800ths away from Justin Cripps. That's not a lifetime. That's one little error, 800ths of a second.
Well, where did he make his mistake? Something up top. This wasn't perfect
Early on,
either,
yeah.
but it wasn't bad, but there was some kind of a mistake we couldn't see. Curve 2 and 3 sometimes, the way they snake through there. Okay, guys.
So Francesco Friedrich, Kel Surprise leads from Hansi Lochner and Justin Cripps. It's going to be a tight battle. So next up is Simon Friedli of Switzerland. He's got Andreas Haas behind him as the snow starts to sweep in. 25-year-old brakeman, only his 4th 2-man World Cup start.
16, pretty similar to what he had last week. 15 in the first run, just a different brakeman, pretty much the same result. But you know, the brakeman just doesn't, here comes the snow, you're right. The brakeman just doesn't push the sled and put the brakes on it after the finish line. the brakeman, he's got to lean in and out of curves. He's got to know where he is. He can't just be a sandbag back there.
Yeah.
He's got to really feel himself around. You know, if you don't, 100-second here, 100-second there, leaning the wrong way. Well, there's a craft to being a brakeman and riding in the back of these sleds.
Is it me, is it the livery, or are the Swiss City sleds cowlings different this year? It looks a lot more pinched at the front, a lot narrower. That little white stripe really accentuates that, because it looks like it shows the highlight. They are definitely a different nose cowling, at least this year. In fact, the whole sled is looking really sharp.
They got a little bit of a BMW look to them, you know, with that. But you're definitely good eyes, Martin. It's all that auto racing instinct that you have.
Friedli 200s behind Mikhail Vogt, I beg your pardon, behind Marcus Treichel, and 1100s behind his teammate Mikhail Vogt.
Marcus Treichel, definitely the most improved person in the field. From not making the cut to 8th. Look at these pictures now. Can the brakeman, let's see the brakeman get rid of those. We shouldn't see those shoulders. Get down a little lower.
We see early on in the run, like in St. Moritz, wriggling down quietly, not as disturbing the sled. Marcus Treichel, 2nd off this week, was 21st off last week, so he had better ice. Brad Hall, 3rd place last week. Got Nick Gleason, the parachute regiment soldier, behind him, a 5:12 start.
Pretty much what he had last week, Martin.
Well, last week was Greg Cackett, his regular 2-man brakeman. Nick Gleason in. It's Nick's 5th 2-man World Cup start on this track alone out of his 11 starts now.
Well, he's hanging around 4th. He's going to need to find some perfect lines down here to, you know, put himself a challenge for a medal. He's falling back now to 5th and beyond.
Took a bronze last week, took a silver in 2-man last year. There's Matthias Burmer, his coach, 5th place. So 3900s, 400s behind Guy Tukovic, 1200s away from bronze. Gonna have a good, fun second heat, aren't we?
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty tough to get those medals away from those 3 guys that are in front, even though that 1200s, someone's gotta make a big mistake. Gleason, a big man. Let's see how he gets in and makes himself small. Arms come up together. I mean, his arms are so long, they almost dragged him on the ice. Now get them shoulders and snug himself in there.
He's not made for bobsleds, is he? Or they're not made for him, one or the other. He's about as wide as those front bunks.
Look, you can't see him in that shot. So he got himself snuggled down in there nicely.
Yeah. But you got to do it so gently in those first couple of corners where you can easily lose the race. So good start to the day for Brad Hall. 2 medals last week. Now next up, Chris Spring of Canada. Another quick sweeping protocol after the 12 sled, which was Brad Hall. So the team's all getting used to this extra little delay. This will be Chris Spring's 57th 2-man World Cup start. He's done 51 in 4-man as well.
So
First World Cup for Chris Spring here was 2011, John, a decade ago.
For Canada? For Canada or Australia?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, that stage it was Canada, yeah.
He was Australian, 206 to 210.
Yeah. Well,
he started 24th last week and rocketed down pretty good. He moved up big time. 15th best time in the first run, the 6th best time in the second run, because he went so early in the second run. He moved up like 5 spots.
Got Sam Giguere behind him. Sam has done 5 previous World Cup races, 2 in 2012, 1 in 2013, 1 in 2016, and 1 in 2020. So he's not a regular 2-man brakeman.
Well, he had the 7th best start in the first heat last week. This time the 13th best start so far. But he's going to have to drive the perfect line here. He's got 3rd best speed, even though he's about 12th position. Falling more back. Snow is coming in. Middle of the pack going down. About to overcome the ice conditions.
Well, the good news is he's at middle of the pack and not out of the tail of the field. When you're coming down out of the top 20, you're going to be struggling. Yes, he is.
That's pretty good. 10th place. You know, last
so where was he last week after the first heat? Yeah, there you go.
15th.
Yeah. So that's much better place to start working from. What is he? He's the 10th behind Marcus Treichel, 1200s behind Mikhail Vogt. That would be 8th place. 15 behind Mihai Tenteer in 7th.
Not an A+. Not bad. He came straight to 10. Did pretty good in the bottom part of the track, really. He was 12th all the way down for numbers.
Sam Giguere, a pro CFL football player. So he's spent a couple of years in each quad away from the track, but back here for the games. Next up, Benny Meyer with Christian Hoover behind him, 24-year-old brakeman. This is Christian's 8th 2-man World Cup. Got bronze in his last 2-man race in Koenigsegg in January with Benny. Benny's best here, a bronze back in 2017. And this is 2-man World Cup start number 49 for the Austrian driver. Has had almost a quarter of his entire 2-man World Cup career on this track. 12th race today.
1100s back, 519 last week. He had the 7th best start in the first run of 514. 4 500s deficiency at the start, and now the snow. Now he's running late. Last week he started about the same, 16th. This week he's starting 14th. 3200s back, 11th best speed. Well, he knows where that shortcut is. Don't know if he doesn't have a ticket on every run, but he's probably only going to use it when he can challenge, usually in the 4-man. Not as proficient in the 2-man as the 4-man.
Has a few medals, but 11th place after the first heat. There's his coach, Wolfgang Schaffer. Good speed at the bottom. He went from being sort of 10th and 11th in the speed traps to 6th in the final trap. Needs a little bit more than that. 52.29 for Benny Meyer.
Well, the 10th best start. Last week he had the 7th best start. Give him 400s more, 1200s more. Marty, give him 1200s more. He's up there in 6th or 7th.
Little information from the Meyer family camp, John, about that Swiss sled. It is apparently a prototype Wallner sled, and it has got a very long bunk on the driver's left-hand side compared to the right-hand side for some reason. Maybe just to make it easier to get in. Benny has one as well. He's not racing it at the moment, though. So next up, Ostas Kibermanis of Latvia. and Matis Miknis. They finished just behind Benny Meyer in 12th place last week. 2 third places on this track for Oskars Kibermanis in January and in race 4 last year in December in 2020, because we did 2 double two-man weekends last year. 5:15.
Look at the snow on the track right there.
Yeah.
You know, this guy's a better starter than that, Martin. He's a top 2 or 3 starter. I think he's on a program that we're just going to take it easy first part of the year. We're going to peak in February. He should have better starts, better results than he had here last weekend. And this is showing to me is pretty much what chalk what he did last weekend.
Well, he's had 12 previous two-man World Cup races here. Twice he missed the cut.
That was early in his career.
Well, yeah, the second one in about his 4th or 5th, so 2 or 3 years in, he actually missed the cut as well. But
was it the last five times he's been here? He's won medals before last weekend?
Yeah, well, last weekend was his worst result where he's made the race.
Yeah,
and
yeah. So
currently,
he won medals.
12th place as well.
This is what he was. So I call this sleeping strategy. You know, they're just going through the motions, doing everything right, testing runners, testing setup.
Yep.
When you win medals 5 straight times on this track, and then come out here the last 2 weeks in the middle of the pack, I don't expect that out of this guy, and I don't expect it out of this guy when it comes to February.
Yep, everybody's trying to combine scoring the right number of points to make sure you qualify well.
Yang Cheng, he was 7th. Yang Cheng, he was 7th with the 2nd best start time. Here he's posting, you know, start times that are pretty much 6th. Another day
So
at the
15
office.
sleds down from our field of 28. Francesco Friedrich is the race leader. Track being swept before our 16 starter, Rudy Rinaldi of Monaco, with his brakeman Boris Van. Big Boris in his 24th two-man World Cup race since his debut in January 2013. And for comparison, he's done 24. Matis Miknis, behind Oskars Kibermanis, today started his 43rd two-man race since January 2016. A 3-year shorter career and 20 more two-man races packed in. But then there's only one monogas sled, and it's not always in the World Cup. Rudy Rinaldi's 27th two-man race. He finished 13th last week here.
The way things are, 13 last week, so probably a 16 or 17 here for the Monogas. 18, snow, they swept there pretty good. He didn't do bad in the second run. He started 22nd last week, Mark, and you know, pulled it down into a respectable 15th position. And then he moved up to the 10th best time in the second run. 16th in the first heat, 7th best time in the second heat.
Last week equalled his best World Cup result here. A couple of 13th place finishes he's had now. He'd definitely like to break the top 10 if he can. How close is he going to be? Well, so far, off the 11th best start, he's hanging around in the top 10.
Yeah, these are good speeds, good lines.
Is he going to be ahead of Marcus Treichel for 9th? He is ahead of Marcus Treichel. Oh no, behind Treichel? No, tied with Treichel. He was neither ahead nor behind. Takes a moment or two for a brain as adult as mine to work that out. That's not bad. That's a good-looking run,
great.
John. Yeah.
Really good. He was in the second heat last week. He was the 7th best time, so he needs to do that again.
Yeah. And that shows how much that late start draw hindered him last week.
Hindered a lot of people. Ask Chris Spring.
Yeah.
Take on to the second, third part of the labyrinth, 3-corner combination. Rudy, Boris, pretty good.
Yeah. Top 10 run for Monaco. Next up, Czech Republic, Dominic Dvorak and Jakob Noshek. Dvorak sealed 3rd overall in the World Cup standings with a great race here in January this year. This is now his 37th two-man World Cup race as a driver. And two of his best World Cup results have been on this track. A couple of fourth-place finishes, including that one in January.
Another driver who's comes from a decathlon background. Him, frequent Chinese athlete, three for sure.
And a whole host of brakemen as well.
Yeah, 17th best start there. That's not his advantage. I mean, last week they had the 14th best start, and he's coming late. Martin, last week he came 13th in the first run. 11th best speed isn't too bad considering the start deficiency.
He needs to try and drag himself 2 or 3 sleds up the order from the tail of the field to give himself a bit of breathing space. Eight sleds won't make the field. He has got good speed,
but he doesn't have any 15th or 16th.
15th. All right.
Speed on the bottom.
A couple of sleds behind him.
Now we got to start talking about the bubble. Who is on, who's going to make the race?
Well, you look at the drivers that didn't make it through. Sung Kai-chi, Lamin Dean, Marcus Treichel, Dvorak is behind Treichel, who had a much better
Hafter's going to beat him.
Yep.
There's 4 or 5 sleds coming.
Christoph Hafer could, Ivo de Bruin could, Yun Jong-won could,
Andrianov
could, Andrianov could, Hunter Church could. I mean, honestly, of the 10 sleds that remain, possibly 9 of them could easily be in the top 20, and that's the big lottery. A third of the sleds basically don't get a second run. So pressure on Christoph Hafer, the 29-year-old German, with Matthias Sommer on the back of the sled. Only his second two-man World Cup start, Matthias.
5:25. Boy, that sentences him to the 14th or 15th. That start, unless he finds some magical line. 4/10, that's going to grow more.
Matthias Sommer, the brakeman, has only had 3 bobsled races since March 2017. So I'm not sure where he's been and what he's been doing in the meanwhile, but it hasn't been bobsled.
Martin, his sporting background, he comes from a luge.
Ah, okay. He may well have been at university or some such, but Christoph Hafer now driving himself into the top 10, John. He's in the race and easily in the race. Yeah,
that was
that's
better.
A very strong run.
Way better. Worse start time than he had last week. He had the 22nd best start time last week. And this week, he had the 17th better, but there's 4 or 5 more starters. Yeah. 4 or 5 more starters to come. That's a better start, better downtime. That's
well, he's had a couple of top 6 finishes on this track, but last week, 15th. I mean, that's definitely not what you'd expect from him on any track.
No. And I'm sure he had a conversation with a few of the German coaches. And look at the big man get in there behind him perfectly. As quiet a line as anybody coming down the track. That's excellent drive. And that's why
it's very clear here because we've got the roof over it, but early in the run, those critical first 2 or 3 corners, corner 2, corner 3, there's no roof between them. It is very snowy. So that's where you're going to lose your speed. The orange jackets. Oh, there's Dominic Dvorak. I think he feels that his race is over, and do you know what? He might not be wrong.
I think he looks hurt.
Yeah, he does a little bit. He's in the bottom 3. Hafer is definitely in. But I'm not sure that Dvorak is.
Dvorak starts
is out.
Either.
No. Ivo de Bruin, 56th. Sorry, guys in the truck, de Bruin. 56th World Cup start, 16th place last week. And bad news for Team De Bruin is that Janko Francic tore his ligaments in his hamstring. He is out. will need surgery and may not be fit for the games. So it's his young brother, Heejun, on the back, just 21 years old. Look at the snow here, John. 1, 2, and 3. That's going to make a big difference to these sleds coming down now.
Well, it's the 19th sled down the track, and he's got the 19th best start, and he's dealing with snow.
Yeah.
But,
and a brand new brakeman who has never started a two-man race before. He's only done 4 bobsleigh races, Jelena Francic, and they were all in the 4-man.
Well, he's hanging in there.
Yeah.
Time. 19. They're 19 all the way down the track. Late there,
big
gonna cause some skids. Right on the bubble.
Well, he made the cut last week. I don't think he's making the cut this week.
18th
ahead of Lamindine, and actually 21 hundredths ahead of Lamindine.
I think Lamindine's going to be disqualified, first of all.
Yeah.
So, if he hasn't, I'm sure Mr. T will provide us that DQ notice when it comes into him.
Yeah.
The lines here. He sort of rounded that exit off. That caused him to steer into the wall. But considering the start of the 19th best start to finish in 18th, he drove. And that wasn't a good drive. Boy, he was skidding going into that first part of the labyrinth.
Hey, Janko, veel beterschap. We missen je. Sterkte, jongen.
Yoon Jong-won of Korea next up, with Kim Jin-Soo behind him, 26-year-old brakeman. Last World Cup for him was here in January. Last for his driver was the final race of the World Cup season last year. 3 top 10 finishes only on this track for Yoon Jong-won. His best at 7th place, 17th equal last week.
Different brakeman this time.
Yeah.
And, you know, 19th best start. You know, last week, though, he had the 11th and 14th best start. So the brakeman change didn't help his cause. And Martin, he is right on the bubble. Our Olympic 4-man silver medalist and the World Cup title holder in 2-man bobsled in the 2015-16 season.
Well, Young-Wo Xiao was his #1 brakeman then and still is. I'm not sure whether they're just keeping him healthy by cycling in other guys or whether So has an issue.
He's going to have all he can do to qualify. He's on the 20th place number right now. 18th, okay. Snuck in.
18th, ahead of De Bruyn.
By 300. Came back in the bottom, Martin. Found a little time down there in that Austrian shortcut section.
Yeah, Evo made those mistakes out of 9 down into 10, which just drags the speed out of the sled. And a little cleaner exit from 1. Yeah.
10 to 11. Now, how about Juan here? That's pretty quiet. Some spray, but not bad. I'd give him an A- on that line.
6 World Cup medals. Not going to add to that tally today. Francesco Friedrich may well do, though. He leads from Johannes Lochner and Justin Cripps. 20 sleds down. Race 2 of the BMW IBSF 2-man bobsleigh World Cup here in Innsbruck in Austria. And 8 sleds all now vying for a place in the race. It's go fast or go home for Frenchman Roman Heinrich. Milner Lefebvre in the sled. Now, he was a late replacement for Dorian Oteville last week in both the 2-man and the 4-man.
Safely in.
Not sure. Again, you can see the tracks being left in the snow. Makes it very easy to put the sled into a skid.
15th best start, then the 18th best velocity. Obviously something wrong entering the sled. He tied for 17th last week with Juan. So let's see what he can match up. He's going to match Juan right now. He's got the 18th best time at the moment. He needs to be really light with his hands here, and he is.
Not an awful lot of speed in the track. 14th best speed.
It's not bad. In fact, he's hanging in there.
Yeah, down in 18th place though. And at the line, it is 18th. So ahead of Yun-Chong Won and 100th behind Sun Kai-chi, our first starter. So Sun, who was 25th last week, looks like he may make the race. But Sun started in 26th place last week.
And he started one. You talk about reversal of fortune. Okay, let's watch the French under the sled. The brakeman's in first. You don't see that too often. Now the driver, or the brakeman's got to wait for the driver to get, he's not getting in well there. Martin, remember I said they had the 15th best start, 18th best velocity? That was it right there. They entering the sled. You know, the driver should be in before the brakeman. And the drive, Roman, this was a pretty good drive down the track. I like his aerodynamic position in the sled. Can't see the brakeman. A-.
Yeah, first corner wasn't great. That cost them some time.
Yeah.
Well, there is Heinrich. Currently in the race. Out, though, Lamindine, whether he's disqualified or otherwise, will not get a second heat. And Ivo de Bruin is 20th. And Davis Kaufmans now from Latvia. Second World Cup race. His only previous World Cup appearance was in November 2020 in Sigulda, where he was 10th. And Eggers Nemeth, the 25-year-old brakeman, 2 years older than his driver, 8th two-man World Cup. His first 3 were in Sigulda. He's had 4 in Innsbruck, and this will be his 5th World Cup start in Eagles.
Well, they're waiting a long time to go. With that snow, you want to go as soon as that light turns green.
Yep. Well, they
the coaches
20
are
extra seconds.
That.
Yeah, it's not ski jumping. You're not waiting for the flag to go down. You get going. 5:17 the getaway.
Not a bad start, but look at the velocity. 20. There's that. I don't trust that velocity clock. I don't know if that can be 9 to 20. Didn't look like any variance there. Of course, the snow's falling, and it does affect the eyes.
Well, it also affects the speed of the sled. They don't accelerate as quickly in a little bit of snow as they would do on fresh ice. 18th best speed for the 23-year-old Latvian.
At this
He'll be doing well to make the field here.
These are good lines. These are great lines. He's 17th at the moment. Yeah. Ooh, tap there. That's going to cost him. Ooh, he's late there. He's going to make it, though.
Yeah, he is in the field.
19th.
19th. Skin of his teeth. It was almost looking like a top 15, and then it just drifted away. And John, you could hear the mistake that run, couldn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Clatter, clatter.
That's not bad, though. He's only 200s behind Heinrich.
And only a second ever World Cup start.
He's got to have 2 people beat him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the next guy coming up's got a chance, but he's not as good in the 2-man as the 4-man.
I think the next 2 might have a chance. They both made the cut last week. Well, Mattia Variola of Italy, maybe.
Well, I'm looking at the numbers. Look at the back end of the sled there. He's got on that.
Not a comfy ride for the brakeman, is it? Nobody gets into this for the leisure time. So this is Maxim Anjanov with Alexei Pushkarev behind him. Anjanov 33, brakeman 35 in his 35th World Cup start today. 36th start for the driver in 2-man.
Boy, 21st best start. Martin, last week he started 27th and made the cut, finishing 19th. He had the 20th best time. He got in right on the number in the last run, and here he is today again, just trying to get into the game. At the moment, he's not in the second run.
His best result here is a 16th place on his debut back in 2015.
Well, I don't think he's got a chance there, Martin. Those are great lines there.
Yeah. Speed is so-so. It might be enough to get him in. It might not be enough to keep him in.
No, he's fallen back more. 23rd.
Yeah, he is, isn't he?
22nd.
Oh, well, so pulled up out. 1. He's out. Ivo de Bruin is out. And Lamindine is out. And Yun-Chong Won, A former World Cup champion in two-man bobsleigh is on the bubble in 20th. It's a funny old business. Not funny ha-ha sometimes.
Well, good entry into the sled, into this little bathtub, we like to call it. Not really for an experienced pilot.
Yeah.
That's not a
got
very
his foot
good
on top of the seat, didn't he?
See, yeah, look at the sled skid to the left.
And that's why he takes too much of the wall in turn one.
Yeah, there you go.
We saw that from, who was it ran too far? Well, let's take a look now at Hunter Church and Hakeem Abdul Sabur. This is Hakeem's third World Cup race here. The first was with Nick Cunningham, I coach. The second with Cody Basket. The third with a third different driver, Hunter Church.
Pretty good start. Hunter had the 25th best start in the heat last week. This week he was with Chris Hornden. This week he's got the 16th. So that's going to give Hunter a chance. Ooh, but he's way behind. 21st already. Hunter's got to find some speed here someplace.
It's his 10th World Cup race start in two-man Hunter Church. 20th last week, leaning it into the turn. 19th best speed. Can he get into the race? He could be ahead of
right on the bubble. Right on the bubble.
Him or a former World Cup champion and Olympic medalist, and he's in.
Knocks him out.
Is it a tie? It is not a tie. He beats one out of the race. Well, right now, Hunter Church is in.
That start time is what got him in. He would have had the same start as last week.
They are in the race. His 10th World Cup start, Hunter. And he's got good memories of this track. In January 2 seasons ago, took a four-man bronze medal.
Second heat.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Well,
at the
four
moment,
sleds
he's going
more
to be the
to go.
first. Look at the size of the brakeman. Hakeem.
He's not a small man, is he?
He's
Hakeem?
a big unit.
Yeah.
But hey, he gave him the afterburner that Hunter needed, because if Hunter would have had the start times last week, Hunter's coming off a serious foot injury. He had pins removed from his foot about a month ago, 5 weeks ago. So he's partial. He's not full yet.
Fingers crossed for a second heat. We'll come back.
Yeah. 4 more sleds to go. Pressure on. And fresher ice for Ryo Shinohara of Japan for his 5th two-man World Cup start. And a late change of brakeman, Yoshiki Kaneko, is back in the sled. He was the two-man brakeman last week. Kenji Murakami was due to be pushing this morning, but to make his first two-man start of the season, but has been taken out of the sled. And Yoshiki Kaneko is behind his driver. 28-year-old driver, 24-year-old brakeman, 27th in last week's race.
His brakeman's a student.
Shinohara, 20th place in the January race, and that is his best result.
Start time. Gonna need some miracle here. 25th best start. Well, it's gonna be pretty hard to do anything with that.
Didn't race in the World Cup last season. Travel restrictions meant that the team were stuck back home in Japan. Ooh. And a skid there is not going to help.
Martin, I don't know what the qualification is for Asia. Now that you have China, Korea, and Japan in the mix. For so many years, it was Japan only. They automatically got in, but I think there's restriction probably. Total numbers of sleds in Asia.
Yeah, and of course in the women's field and in skeleton, you've got to count Australia in as well.
That's the Oceania
14. Yeah. 53.14, 25th best time for Ryo Shinohara.
Hunter
Church breathes for another 2 minutes. Yeah.
6 minutes
Honestly,
more.
I think the potential for disappointment for Hunter Church is only in the next sled, Mattia Variola of Italy.
I agree.
I don't see Baumgartner getting in. Yeah.
He's not the only one done that. There's been some women's sled from Monobobs. That spot up there on the exit of 6, I think it is.
It is.
7, maybe. 6.
There are a number of common mistakes on this track, and you see them time and time again. So, Mattia Variola, 21st last week, 14th two-man World Cup start now for the 26-year-old Italian. He's got Eric Fantazzini behind him again in his 8th World Cup start. This will be Fantazzini's 7th World Cup start in Eagles. Mattia has done 6 World Cups in Eagles and 6 in Sigulda. The only other track he's raced on in World Cup once was Koenigsegg. That is him or Hunter Church.
515, or actually 523, so he's 500 slower, that's what I meant to say.
So we're comparing him now to Hunter Church, who's in 20th place. Identical starts, John.
No, Hunter was
523. No, he started 523.
Yeah, you're right.
26 best speed. Ooh, that's not good.
No, he's got no chance, I think, at the moment. He's way behind Hunter by about 1,500 at this point. And it's going to grow.
And the gap is opening up, and there isn't the speed in the Italian sled.
Okay, he'll live for another day, Martin. We saw what the Italians did in women's skeleton yesterday with that bronze medal. That was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and Italian program is starting to make some stride. Men's skeleton, women's skeleton, women's bob. They're starting to move up the ladder.
26 years old, Mattia. He's still got plenty of time to learn before we get to Milan Cortina in 4 years' time.
A little bit of a drift. Not bad. But I think we can safely say, I would think that Hunter's in. Hunter Church is done. I don't think the other two sleds can match him.
No, I would agree, unless Patrick Baumgartner produces something very special. He's got Robert Mattia behind him. Last week was Robert's first ever bobsleigh race. This is his second two-man start, the brakeman. Baumgartner finished 24th last week.
Well, 21st best start probably will relegate him to the back of the pack. Wow.
Yeah.
Not the way to do it.
Well, 600's behind Hunter Church as he sits down. So he has to outdrive the American to make his way in. Yeah, the gap's out.
He might have a chance to outdrive
of Japan. Ooh,
he might have a chance to Martin, he might have a chance to outdrive him if he was in Cortina. Not on this track. On this track is pretty difficult to take a deficit at the top. You know, overcome it on the bottom.
Well, I think Hunter Church outdrove his start draw, and a 52.74. That's not going to get Patrick Baumgartner into the race. I think we may well look back at his career and say Youth Olympic Gold 2012 was the high point. So Baumgartner, 25th of our 27 sleds so far.
Up top, the speeds are slow, or it's down the bottom in the labyrinths.
So he does not get a second heat. Yeah, we get to our final sled, Xiao Heejun of China. Again, sweeping every third sled, so the 26-year-old will have fresh ice for his 7th World Cup start. Raced in the 2019-20 season, didn't race here, of course. He's only been here twice, 1 World Cup, 1 Europa Cup race. And they were both within the space of 2 weeks in January 2019. So he's had 1 intensive blast of Innsbruck and then 2 weeks here now. And Ding Song, his brakeman closest to us, a two-man World Cup debutant. Turned 25 last Saturday. Didn't race then. He has had one four-man World Cup race and 3 two-man starts in North America's Cup. So he can count his bobsleigh races officially on the fingers of one hand up to now, the brakeman. And there are the sled techs, making sure that everything is right. Swiss father and son combination.
A lot of noise.
So here we go. Yeah. Well, World Cup best result 13th. Best result here 14th. So can Heejun make the field from the 28th start draw?
Well, his teammate drew #1, and he made the field. He's in 17th. That tells you how much of an advantage is in the draw.
Yeah.
And it's only the top 5 sleds.
Come off the 22nd start, and he's already down to 27th on the splits. And that shows that he is not working with the same kind of ice that his teammate had, going 26 sleds earlier. And Heejun is not going to make it through a 52.98. Always inscrutable pace of Pierre Luders.
Well, the brakeman knows how to put the brakes on quick.
Yes. He's been doing those preacher curls, hasn't he? Making no mistakes when getting the sled stopped. Driver gets himself hooked up on Mikhail, getting in as well.
The brakeman's still running. Surprised at that. Good technique for him, down. Oh, look at the runner. He had a little Robin Hood there in the exit mark. I'm sure Pierre Luders will have a conversation about that. He saw it.
So Heejun will watch the second heat from the sidelines. The man who will be watching it, almost all of it, from the dressing room will be Francesco Friedrich with Breakton Course and Margus. They're our first heat leaders, and they will go off last as we go 20 down to 1. And for the first time in nearly 2 weeks, there is not a single dead heat in. Oh, there is. There's one in the field, tied for 10th. Marcus Trico and Rudy Rinaldi, but the 20 fastest sleds go down. Hunter Church will be first off. Last to go will be Francesco Friedrich to defend the lead and to try and take his 39th two-man World Cup medal and his 12th on this track alone. So those are the top 20, a second, first to 20th. And you think that's a lifetime? Wait until you see somebody who doesn't know what they're doing driving the sleds when the amateurs get out. And behind, Yun Jung-won, Iva de Bruyne, Adrianov, Fariola, Baumgartner, Dean, Xiao, and Shinohara will all be watching trackside. You can too. Join John Morgan, me, Martin Haven, and the IBSF TV crew. We'll be back at 1600 local, 1500 Greenwich Mean Time. That is 10 Eastern. We'll see you then.